My name is Patrick Peterson, and my research is on attendance at newly constructed MLB stadiums. So my research question is, what is the effect of newly constructed MLB stadiums on attendance? So with all things being equal, what is the effect of this new stadium that's being built? Obviously, take into effect ticket prices, team quality, the history of the team, that sort of thing, but we want to look strictly at the quality of the stadium that is being built. So for a little background information, teams are spending millions and even billions of dollars on newly constructed MLB stadiums. The New York Yankees spent $2.3 billion in 2009 on their new Yankee Stadium, the most spent on any MLB ballpark. There is a honeymoon and novelty effect on attendance. So obviously in that first year, there's going to be an increase in attendance. But what is it going to look like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and even 10 years down the road? So obviously we know that teams are going to fall in love with the stadium, that sort of thing. But when does that wear off for the fans? And when does team quality and that sort of thing really matter the most? So obviously since 2000, there's been 15 new stadiums. So there's a lot of research that can be done and studies that can be done on this sort of thing. So what is the effect with all things being equal? As I said before, ticket prices, team quality, team age. And when I say team age, I mean like the team history. Teams like the Washington Nationals versus the Boston Red Sox that have been around forever. So for literature review, Rhodes and Getter, they studied the effect of attendance on new minor league stadiums. And one of the benefits that the MLB has is that they have the minor league system and they're able to study at a more smaller level the effect of new stadiums on attendance and bringing in more fans and revenue. So based on their studies, they found at the AAA level, they'll get an increase of 870,000 new fans over a 10-year period. In AA, it'd be 240,000. At high A, it'd be 500,000. And in single A, it'd be 240,000. Obviously, this is at a much smaller level, but at the MLB, it's kind of like a small thing that they can see what can potentially happen. But in more of their research, they did find that there were higher ticket prices in the first 10 years than 10 years prior. So you got to take that into effect of ticket prices and revenue generation. So we'll talk about that, some of the data I'll collect, but you have to take into effect of ticket prices and how that's going to affect on attendance as well. One of the things that they found as well is that there was a minimal increase in attendance from winning teams. So a 500 team that goes on to increase to 600, win 60% of their games, it's going to result in 51 new fans. And, over a 70-game season for the minor leagues, that's very minimal. That's only about 3,500 new fans a year. They said even after that, the second year, it's only about 30 new fans a game. So there's not much of an effect on team winning. One of the things that I also found was really interesting is that they looked at the MLB and minor league baseball as a substitution effect. And they found that there was an increase in minor league baseball attendance during the MLB strike. And I kind of find this important because you look at, teams building these new stadiums and they talk about the local economy and the things that can do for the city. And, they say that, well, there'll be extra spending at the stadium, or is it just like a substitution effect? Like, are people going to be spending money anyway? They're just spending it elsewhere. And this is kind of goes to show that could possibly be it. So Depkin, he did his on the impact of new stadiums on team finances. On average, construction costs were around $240 million, only $60 million by MLB teams. So you're looking around $180 million from the public local community. So that's about 75%. Based off their research, it would take only about 6 years for an MLB team to get their return from the money invested in that new stadiums. But the public, that's going to take over 20 years overall to get all that money back. They also looked at cost per seat, the public cost per seat, and percentage paid by the public. Obviously, the amounts that's paid by the public is a lot more than what the team is paying for and what they're replacing in the old stadium. And as you can see by those numbers, that 5,274, and then 1,867. That's much bigger, and that's just cost by the public per seat. Obviously, there's large support by local officials, but there's obviously a slow return on the money that they invest into these new stadiums. So Coates and Humphreys, they did their research on the novelty effect in MLB, NFL, and NBA. A lot of this was done to see like what is the effect and what does it do for better policy decisions. So they found that subsidies are insufficient, and the cities and these teams are in need of better agreements. But they did find they kind of came up with a form of novelty effect, and they took into account variables such as average attendance, stadium age, winning percentage, income per capita, that sort of thing. They found that there was a 28% increase in first year and 15% greater than average attendance in eighth year. So as I said, there's the results in their research, and they're just saying that there's need for better policy decisions, and the money that is spent on these stadiums and the money that the MLB and the public is paying. So the methods, I'm going to collect data on attendance numbers from all franchises. So getting information from Baseball Almanac and Statista about average attendance numbers by every MLB team, ever since the franchise started. Look at revenue generation, winning percentage, seating capacity, stadium age, construction costs. All these kind of go into effect of attendance for these MLB teams. Revenue generation, of course, a team can have not as much of an increase in their attendance, but if they price it correctly, they can make just as much money. Winning percentage, like, is it really having much of a difference in the first few years of this new stadium? Seating capacity. So in the old stadiums that we'll be looking at, they tended to have larger stadiums, and so because they're multi-purpose. But now a lot of these MLB stadiums are just for the baseball teams, and they have a lot more amenities and whatnot, and more customized. And then of course stadium age and construction costs, as I said. So in conclusion, like, what is the long-term, short-term, and long-term effect? So we want to look 1, 3, 5, and 10 years down the road. What kind of implications are there for these MLB teams and the local officials on how much is spent, how much are you getting back in attendance? The MLB relies on ticket prices more than anything else because they don't get a lot from TV revenue. They rely on ticket prices, concessions, and that sort of thing. So that's obviously very important for them. And so how long will this honeymoon phase last for stadiums? So that is it. Any questions, please let me know. Thank you.